She wasn't supposed to be there. That was the only thought racing through Mia's mind as she stood frozen in the sleek, intimidating conference room with a dozen sharply dressed executives staring at her. Her hands trembled slightly, clutching a cheap notepad to her chest like a shield. The silence stretched just long enough to make her heart thump louder, but not long enough for her to escape. This wasn't the intern orientation. And the man sitting at the head of the table, in a tailored navy suit that probably cost more than her monthly rent, was none other than Adrian Blackwell, the elusive, brilliant, terrifyingly successful CEO of Blackwell and Company. He looked up. Right at her. And then something unexpected happened. He smiled. It wasn't wide. It wasn't warm. But it was real. And in that moment, Mia knew she couldn't run. Not now. So she stayed. She took the empty seat at the end of the table, adjusted her glasses with a shaky breath, and tried to blend in. She didn't know why she did it. Maybe it was pride, or maybe it was just the echo of her mother's voice saying, "You're not small, Mia. Never act like you are." The meeting began. Numbers. Forecasts. Strategies. Marketing shifts. Big things that little interns had no business hearing. But Mia, with her degree in marketing and nights spent obsessively watching TED Talks instead of sleeping, understood more than she expected. So when Adrian casually opened the floor to suggestions for the faltering Gen Z campaign, no one expected the intern, this wrong place, wrong time girl, to raise her hand. But she did. And again, silence. I think the campaign's missing something, she said, her voice steadier than she felt. You're selling luxury, but Gen Z buys identity. If you want them to care, it has to mean something to them. Not just look expensive. The room tensed. A few turned to Adrian, waiting for him to shut her down. He didn't. Instead, he leaned forward, chin resting on steepled fingers, and said simply, "Go on." She went on. By the time she finished speaking rambling, passionate, and awkwardly honest, the room had shifted. People were listening. The man at the head of the table was listening. When the meeting ended, Adrian stood as the others shuffled out. But he didn't leave. He waited. And then, as she hurried to gather her things, cheeks burning with shame, he said, "You're not part of this team." Mia froze. I know. I'm sorry. I walked into the wrong. You should be, he interrupted, because your team should have had you in the right room. She looked up, confused. You've got nerve, Adrian said. Most interns won't speak for 6 months. You spoke in 10 minutes. He handed her a card. It had his personal assistant's number on it. Be in my office tomorrow at 8. I want to hear more. The door closed behind him, and Mia stood there alone. That moment changed everything. She became part of Adrian Blackwell's world unexpectedly, undeniably, and irrevocably. What started as mentorship turned into weekly meetings. Then brainstorming sessions. Then after-hours discussions about branding, market evolution, and eventually, life. Adrian wasn't what the tabloids said. He wasn't just cold steel and perfect suits. He was layered. Lonely, even. A man who'd built an empire but forgotten how to live outside it. And Mia, in all her unfiltered honesty and raw ambition, became the unexpected bridge between him and the world he'd built to protect himself from. But it wasn't easy. She was mocked by colleagues. Questioned by managers. Even Adrian's board started whispering, why was the CEO spending so much time with an intern? The pressure weighed on her, heavy and unrelenting. There were days she nearly quit. Like the day she overheard 2 senior executives laughing in the hallway, she's just a pretty face. He'll be done with her in a month. That night, she cried alone in the staff bathroom, wiping tears with tissue paper that smelled like cheap soap. But she didn't quit. Because she wasn't just there for him. She was there for her. For the girl who spent her teenage years sketching ad ideas in math class. For the woman who had to take 3 jobs to pay for college. For the version of herself who dared to speak in that first meeting, heart pounding but eyes wide open. So she stayed. And Adrian noticed. He saw the strength beneath the surface. The brilliance in her ideas. The quiet power of someone who had nothing to prove, but everything to give. Their professional relationship deepened. Their personal connection bloomed. One late night, over cold takeout and dim city lights pouring through the penthouse windows, he told her everything. How he lost his parents young. How building Blackwell and Company gave him purpose, but cost him his peace. How he hadn't really laughed, in years. Until her. Mia didn't respond with poetic words. She just reached across the table, took his hand, and squeezed it. And that was enough. Their relationship wasn't perfect. There were arguments. Misunderstandings. A scandal tabloid headline that almost destroyed them both. But there was also growth. Adrian learned to lead with heart, not just mind. Mia learned that confidence isn't loud, it's consistent. Together, they rebranded the company's Gen Z campaign. It went viral. Revenue soared. Recognition followed. She got promoted. Not because of him, but because of her. And Adrian? He fell not just for her confidence, but for her resilience. Her integrity. Her laughter in the backseat of a black company car after a long day. Her tears on a rooftop when she didn't know if she could keep going. Her faith that even in the wrong room, she belonged. Years later, at the company's annual gala, Adrian stood in front of 1,000 employees. He thanked his team. He celebrated their success. And then he raised a glass and said, "I want to toast the one person who walked into the wrong room and ended up changing my life." The crowd turned to Mia, elegant in a midnight blue dress, smiling as if it was still all a dream. She stood. Walked to him. And in front of everyone, he asked her to be not just his partner in business, but his partner in everything. She said yes. And somewhere, deep in her chest, the nervous intern smiled. Because the girl who didn't belong had become the woman who led. And the CEO who had everything had finally found what he was missing. Love. Purpose. And someone who saw the man, not just the empire. The end.